I am Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. Hello, everyone. I am Jimbo Paris. Welcome again to The Jimbo Paris Show. So, today, this is going to be a different structure. I am going to be more so showcasing a lot of interesting facts. So, what I'm going to talk about today is Jimbo Paris marketing. Now, I wanted to create Jimbo Paris marketing for you all because I want to create a foundation that you all can use to perform well in marketing as well. Why am I qualified to give you this information? Well, I can't tell you to learn from me, but what I can do is give you my experience, and hopefully you will take that experience as my honest word, and you will apply the concepts that I'm willing to teach you. So essentially, I am a media and communication studies major at UMBC. I have some experience with running businesses too. I have a minor in business and I have a team. But essentially, what I'm going to do here is I am going to give you my media and communication lessons that I use to help me land internships in big businesses like GE and General Electric. Okay? So let's quickly get started. And if you see me looking to the left right there, that's where I have a few of my notes that I will use as a reference point to help show you all what I need to explain here. So for the Jimbo Paris marketing series, my goal is to essentially empower you all through the education of marketing. And not only the education of marketing, well, we may change around the name. I may change it to Jimbo Paris Communications as well. But the point is, it's to educate you on the concepts of media and communications and to pave a path from a basic route that you all could use to apply to your everyday life, your internships, your college experience, and so forth. So, for this Jimbo Paris Show episode, I am going to use this episode as sort of a funnel or a channel that can potentially lead you into focusing in on the brother podcast, the other podcast besides this. Okay? So, let's get started. So, the first concept I'm going to run through to you is this idea that social media is both an art and a science. Now, you may be thinking, why are we talking about social media? Well, social media is the main playing ground, the main structure where all great marketing happens. And if you don't understand the area you're playing in, how are you supposed to perform? You need to understand your environment before we begin getting into the nitty gritties and the specifics and the KPIs and all those other details. Okay? The basics are key. So, social media is both a science and an art. This is the topic we're going to address. I initially thought a lot of these things were pointless. Why am I learning about social media in general? It's important because a lot of people don't know simple things. For example, here's one simple. Do you know how to actually define what social media is? Do you? What is social media? Essentially, there are many different terms and nuances we could use to refer to social media. It can be seen as blogs, a combination of forums, customers, customer support emails. It can be seen as the relationship between technology and sort of how people interact with that technology to build relationships. There are many different terms, but can you actually define what social media is? I'm going to quickly share my screen with you all here. So if we run through here quickly, here's what I'm going to show. So first of all, social media is essentially a personalized online network hub for information and dialogue and relationship management. And it's a tool that allows the individual to interact with users in an effective way. Okay. And it can use to persuade people. It can be used to allow you to potentially hone in on a specific target audience. It can be used in many different ways. And essentially this is sort of the basic bare bone definition of what social media really is. Now, I have sort of done a lot of the work defining what this is, but the definitions can vary. But this is what I consider the overall best definition that you can. And another thing is that it can allow professional scholars and users to have different definitions as well. Because again, social media is so inclusive that many people could have their own definition. But the basic one, really, the textbook, most academic one, is a personalized online network hub for information dialogue and relationship management. And it allows individuals, organizations to engage with and persuade and target audience. And again, as Web 2.0 came out, it can additionally help to emphasize medias that involve toolkits that allow to create and share content. And that essentially wasn't as accessible as when, the first web came. But again, those are some more fine details we could get into later. Now, the next piece I'm going to get into here is sort of the evolution of social media. So Google launched Google Plus, and Google Plus was essentially the thing that was supposed to compete with Facebook. And Google Plus basically accomplished this by allowing workspaces to be made, allowing others to communicate through chats and so forth. Again, Facebook has a very interesting chat function, and this function will allow for a lot of these different things to be accessible. Instagram also had stories. Now, if you're familiar with stories, stories are essentially little nuggets that can be thrown out on a platform that can allow people to understand what's going on with people's lives. But another interesting fact too is Instagram and Facebook are owned under the same company. So understand this, even evolution doesn't just propagate due to competition. Evolution can just happen in general, period. Next point is that LinkedIn jumped on the stories bandwagon as well. And this was to compete with TikTok. So again, you have business platforms jumping out of their own comfort zone to sort of do this. Now, I will actually get into the difference between platforms and just regular social media in general. And with the rising success, TikTok was rebranded for the success of Musically as well. And again, Facebook is also offering a jobs feature, and that's to compete with LinkedIn as well. And you get the point. Essentially, this evolution doesn't just propagate within one social media platform. You notice Facebook is not committing to one thing. They're not staying in their lane with just families and regular consumer outlook. They're also trying to help the job market. So they are trying to expand more into that professional lane. The same way LinkedIn is trying to be more expansive on the inclusive lane by incorporating their own approach that involve stories. So a few interesting things we have there. Now, as we continue on here, what else do we? So, how can social media essentially be used in a strategic manner? So, I think social media can be used strategically in many different ways. And this is when we sort of getting more into the whole marketing insight. So, social media can, first of all, be used to bring a key audience towards what your agenda is. For example, I could make a social media account based on cake, fruit cake, and it's a Facebook page on fruit cake. And I pay a little bit extra money to have inbound, well, no, outbound marketing ads that can relay people to my Facebook. Essentially, when I do that, I can attract a bigger audience than I would if I wasn't using social media, because people are already there on the social media, and the enhanced accessibility with that social media will allow you to bring in more key audience members. And it can also give you a way to understand where audience members are going. Because a great thing social media does is it gives you metrics. It gives you numbers, it gives you organic traffic, inorganic traffic. You could even use Facebook to know what people from different countries are accessing your content most frequently. So there's many different things you can use. And this can carry over to many different things. And another point that we need to address here is that social media is both an art and a science. Social media, of course, is a science because, again, my entire major was dedicated to the study of social media. And essentially, media and communications as a whole really looks at the idea of the medium as the message. I don't really, media and communication majors, we don't really see social media as anything different from what occurred in the caveman era. The message is always the same. The message is always about bringing together a community. Social media in caveman era was essentially just groups of people meeting together, talking under a fire. But that has overall evolved into a platform such as this, where I can sit down and communicate with you all now. Now, the science looks at, again, if we look at KPIs, if we look at data, if we look at things like lead generation and AI being incorporated into social media, yes, it is a science. But then there's an art as well. Look at influencers, for example. They are loved, they are cherished, they are seen in an emotional light. That idea and that concept can sort of connect well to the idea that social media is essentially an art. It is an art. Okay. And again, you see it all the time. There's people that may not have tons and tons of marketing advice. And I'll admit this, they don't have a lot of marketing insight, but their show becomes very popular. Now, I would say it's luck and perhaps maybe the art of drawing in that audience prove to support a good audience. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds a bit confusing. Well, this is going to get into Jenkins' idea of participatory culture. So, participatory culture essentially looks at the idea that the consumers soon become the producers. So, let me give you some examples. Let's look at maybe a series such as Star Wars. Most shows in general grow through horizontal integration. Most films in particular go through horizontal integration. Well, no, vertical integration, forgive me. Most shows grow due to vertical integration. And vertical integration is eventually where you just take your show and push it on Blockbuster. And you just pray to God that your show becomes a blockbuster hit. That was the culture for most shows in general. It was only until the era of Star Wars that that whole concept was changed. So what do I mean by that? Essentially what happened is that the consumers began to look at Star Wars and think, we could help these people out. Let's take the content and let's reverse engineer the content. And let's begin producing the content into something called fandom. Okay, or fan art. And so and this is when you get the fan groups and all those other things. So while Star Wars may not have initially had the marketing insight, they understood the art and they drew the audience in. But then the consumers of that Star Wars eventually incorporated more of the science of marketing and began to share and post Star Wars content, and gradually it became viral. And this is usually what happens. You know, this is why a lot of times you see these influencers that may not be too marketing savvy that end up becoming big hits because you don't know who is working in the background. They could have a guy like me helping them out to attract specific audiences, or they could just have a team of fans that push this through. This is why it's so important that you need marketing experts, and you can't just rely on it either being a science alone or an art alone. And I think both sides are wrong. It truly is both. So I've sort of ran through the main key points, the main nuggets, if you will, of how to interpret all of this information. So the next point is, how does this define your journey now getting into marketing? What can this podcast help you become? This podcast, first of all, I'll admit it, I am using this as well to grow my own insight because I have the goal of being a better marketing specialist, a better marketing strategist, a better podcaster in general who can utilize marketing. So if you are a content creator, if you are a marketer, or if you're just interested in understanding media and communications as a whole, I think this show is your best bet. So take a look, check it out, and give me your feelings and give me your opinions on what the next episode should be, or if you even like this. All right. I'm Jimbo Paris, and this is the Jimbo Paris Show. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.